Welcome back to another edition of the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. With you as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, soon to be Brazilian in nature. Soren Petro here from Sports Radio 810 WHB as we talk about continuing the dynasty. What is it going to take for the Kansas City Chiefs to continue their dynasty? First, we'll talk about Rashee Rice and what it's going to do to the passing game to keep that rolling along. We'll get into that discussion. And then we break down 5 things that it will take for the Kansas City Chiefs to continue their dynasty. We're talking about it right here, right now, on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. Off and running here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Let's start about it. Rashee Rice is going to be out 6 games. What does this do to the passing game of the Kansas City Chiefs? How should they handle things? How did they handle things in preparation for now not having him for 6 games?
I would say I don't think it's going to be exactly what we saw midway through last year when they obviously became a lot more conservative offensively. You know that Andy Reid's going to have a lot of tricks in his bag when he comes out in week 1. They're going to have a lot of things that they prepared for this. They've had time to think about it and know it's going to be an option, that he wouldn't be there for the first game. But it's still a hit because we just don't know, as much as we talked about Travis Kelce, what he's going to be at this age, this advanced age. We don't know what Xavier Worthy's going to be. We don't know if Hollywood Brown is going to stay healthy. The other guys, there's a lot of wild cards in this. And so my feeling is that they lose a guy. It's like basketball. He's the kind of guy who can create his own shot. Without him, you got to rely on a lot of scheming and a lot of work to get everybody else going. So I think that's the big thing. He's the one guy can create offense for himself without doing a whole lot of work.
How far does it set him back, Sam?
I think a lot. I mean, look, I went to every practice but one of training camp, and Patrick Mahomes was terrific in St. Joe, but there was a clear second-best player on the field, and it was Rashee Rice. I mean, we talked a lot about Josh Simmons. We talked a lot about Kingsley Suamataia, the entire offensive line. There was talk about Travis Kelce and the weight loss, but Rashee Rice is head and shoulders the best weapon that Patrick Mahomes has. And he's not going to have him for 6 weeks. And so to me, while their entire offseason was talking about a certain element of their passing game, to me now you have to ask the exact opposite question, which is how do they solve their short passing game? Because that's what defenses are going to force them to do. And Rashee Rice was an answer to it. And last year, that's the reason their offense took such a considerable dip, is because they didn't have an answer to it. And then week 11, week 12 of last year, they finally decided that maybe Xavier Worthy isn't the deep ball threat. Maybe he can be the short and intermediate guy and behind the line of scrimmage guy. And he was good at it, but he's not Rashee Rice. And then you still take away the reason you brought Xavier Worthy in. And so I don't know whether they're going to try and use Tyquan Thornton in the Xavier Worthy role and Xavier Worthy in the short game role. But I think if you do that, you're playing Xavier Worthy a little bit out of position while he did improve in that area. And the key is what Jeff said, like Rashee Rice can create his own yards. You don't have to scheme it up like you do for everybody else. And I think what was most telling is Rashee Rice was second on the team last year in yards after catch. He played 3.5 games, second on the team last year in yards after catch. Like Xavier Worthy was number 1 and was top 20 in the league, but they didn't have anybody else who could get their own yards without it being schemed up.
Yeah, who has to step up in his absence, Jeff?
Well, Sam just said the name Xavier Worthy is the most obvious candidate. And I think because of the experience he had last year and the experience they had working with him in that situation and throughout the offseason, I mean, you can do more stuff to prepare him for those kinds of opportunities. But end of the day, he's still a much smaller version of Rashee Rice. I don't think for a guy who's as fast as he is, I don't think he's that amazingly elusive. Or he's not going to run through anybody, but I think he's more of a straight line speed guy. He's not like a Tyreek Hill jitterbug you and disappear in the blink of an eye. So, but I think he's the number 1 guy because everybody else has got questions at receiver. I mean, again, you don't know what Hollywood Brown is. As great as Tyquan Thornton was as a story, he's still a guy who was a bust in New England as a 2nd-round pick, and you just don't know what he's going to be. I've seen that story before around the NFL. A guy that looks great in training camp, and then all of a sudden the real game started. He's like now I know why New England cut him type guy.
So let me try it this way. Who's the guy who steps in for him? Okay, Xavier Worthy is the second best based upon his performance last year, but who's the guy that steps in and plays that spot? Maybe not gets all the numbers. Maybe it is Xavier Worthy that gets the numbers, but is it Juju Smith-Schuster? Is that the guy? Is it like who's now the guy that's going to fit into that slot as a player? Sam,
I think, Juju's going to play more of the X role. Rashee Rice plays a lot of the slot. When Hollywood Brown was healthy last year, which if you remember, that was obviously when they didn't have Rashee Rice when he came back late in the year. And we saw Hollywood Brown play half of his snaps in the slot. So I think you're going to see a combination. I actually think it would be a mistake if the Chiefs try and make just a like-for-like replacement for Rashee Rice because they don't have that guy on their roster. And so I think you've got to just anticipate, as Jeff said, this is a difference from last year to where Rashee Rice goes down in week 4, and now from week 4 to week 5, you're planning to not have Rashee Rice. You've known all training camp you're not going to have Rashee Rice for a portion of the season, and therefore you've had more time to consider what's this going to look like, what should this look like, and if the Chiefs aren't better prepared for it, shame on them.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's going to be interesting to see who's going to be the guy that fits in there. How long does it take for them to get back up to whatever they're going to be, Jeff? When he comes back, 6 games, then what? Game 7, they are the full force of it, or no? Does it take 8, 9? Like what? How long will it take for him to get back up to speed and for the offense to fit him back in? I mean, in basketball, there's always a feeling when somebody comes back, we're everything we were, and we're now that guy. And usually there's a step back to take 2 forward, right? Does that happen in football, or will the Chiefs be just who they're going to be the moment he steps back on the field?
Well, I think you have to assume that somebody else is going to get hurt or something's going to happen. Like they've gone the last 2 years at that spot at receiver where they've had issues where, it was drops obviously a couple of years ago, but I think Juju went down for a spell in 23, whenever, what year was that? My years are getting confused here, but
22.
Was it 22? Yeah, 22. But ultimately, yeah, you have to assume there's going to be other people who get banged up, and what is he going to come back to? So I do think it's a question of, I don't think it's as simple as he comes back in, you plug him in, and you play, and you go to a next level. I think there's going to be things they're going to have to adjust to that he will help. But ultimately, the way he plays and the way they use him, it won't take long for him to find his groove, I think. I think it'll be easy for him to get back into it and start playing.
Yeah. I will say this. I do think Travis Kelce and Juju Smith-Schuster, we've heard a lot about the great shape Travis Kelce's in. Juju talked about him working out more, putting family behind, working out more. Those 2 guys have got to be the guys that step it up and fill the void. In the meantime, they're the veterans. They know the offense. There's no excuse if it's not those 2 guys having big days in the meantime. Sam, I think I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, well, first of all, you're right about that. They do have Jalen Royals, but he's going to miss week 1. I anticipate, potentially week 2, 3, 4. Like he'll be in the mix before Rashee Rice comes back. But to me, the interesting question is how long before the Chiefs know how defenses are going to play him now? Because if you're a defense and Rashee Rice is in the lineup versus Rashee Rice is out of the lineup, those do not require the same game plan. Like you should be playing those teams differently based on whether or not Rashee Rice is on the roster. And so for 6 weeks, what the Chiefs are going to be playing against, to me, is not what they're going to be playing against mid-season, late season, and therefore into the playoffs. And so it shortens the Chiefs' runway to best prepare their best team. We saw last year to where we didn't see the Chiefs' best version of themselves until week 14, 15, 16, 17 last year. Like, it was their last 4 games with Patrick Mahomes that they finally turned it on. That's 4 games. Rashee Rice is missing 6. That runway that you had last year to sort of figure it out based on how defenses were playing you is gone. Now, the better part of this is you have better talent to prepare to where Rashee Rice can make something out of nothing, to where if Xavier Worthy is your number 2 option, suddenly that looks better. It's not that dissimilar to suddenly getting a closer in baseball. Your 9th inning guy becomes 8th, and 8th becomes 7th, and so on. But still, like, you gather information over the early course of the season. Spags said it today. He said something to the effect of, I think it takes a quarter of a season for a defense to figure themselves out, and same for the offense. The Chiefs offense is robbed of that quarter of the season. They don't know how defenses are going to play them until, week 8, week 9, week 10.
Yeah. No, I agree. And they also get a chance to like throw a different look at everybody, right? As soon as he comes back. But yeah, it's a big hurdle, right? They had a lot of them last year, and they already have one to begin with this year. So I don't think it's going to be just as simple as, okay, yeah, we're going to go 5-1 and move forward. Like, this is a big problem. Just because they succeeded with Adam last year doesn't mean they're going to succeed. And they didn't. They succeeded largely because of the defense, right? Yeah. And not because of the offense. So I do think it's going to be interesting to see how it all comes together and how they do try to overcome it with him not there. We'll come back. We'll start talking about our 5 things that have to happen to keep this dynasty going if they're going to make a run at what the Patriots did. We'll do it after you hear from our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. All right, let's talk about it. 5 things that will keep this dynasty rolling. We mentioned the Patriots were kind of like 2 dynasties connected by 10 years of no championship. They did go to 2 more Super Bowls and have an undefeated regular season in there. But they were able to obviously turn the roster over time and time again. We each came up with a list of 5 things that are going to need to occur for the Chiefs to keep this dynasty rolling. Jeff, you want to lead us off? What's number 1 on yours?
Well, it's the most obvious one is the quarterback. And I would phrase it as not just the health of him staying healthy for the foreseeable future, but also just him staying at a high level, playing at a high level. I mean, he's moving into his 30s now, and he's been amazing, but he has been banged up at times. And it is, it's hard for people to remember this kind of stuff, but, you've seen Peyton Manning have career-threatening injuries. You've seen other quarterbacks go through this process of their skills declining, like a Russell Wilson. I don't see him having the kind of issues Russell Wilson had, but I certainly can feel the next 5 years are going to be the best years of his career moving forward. Anything beyond that is going to be a wild card. So I think staying healthy in that window, staying on top of his game, and I don't want to say getting lucky, but I'll just say those 2. I'll say staying healthy and staying on top of his game.
Okay. Sam, where do you start?
Draft well. I think when you look at the teams that have won Super Bowls here, they're filled with guys that aren't making that much money, but are key contributors. I actually went through this exercise, and in 2019, Tyreek Hill occupies 1.17% of the cap. Chris Jones is at 1.05%. Charvarius Ward is at 0.3%. You've got other guys at less than 0.5% that made contributions like Thornhill, Colin Saunders, McCole Hardman, Damian Williams. In 22, you've got this great draft class. So Pacheco's at 0.33%. Watson's at 0.33%. Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey and Nick Bolton are at 0.6% of the cap or less. McDuffie's at 1%. And 23 looks very similar to 22, except for then Rashee Rice is only making 0.5%. And by the way, you got L'Jarius Sneed in there at 0.5% of the cap. Like, these teams are filled with contributors who are not highly paid, which, by the way, is the formula for a lot of Super Bowl teams. It's just that for most Super Bowl teams, or I should say many Super Bowl teams, that low number includes the quarterback. The Chiefs are the inverse in the fact that the quarterback's making a lot and a lot of their other guys have not. So in this era in which they're not only paying the quarterback, but they're paying the star defensive player, and now they're starting to pay some of their own draft picks, the guys that I just mentioned, it's going to become even more crucial to have cheap labor.
That's a great point. I love that one. I mean, yeah, you have to. If you're not drafting well, you're going to keep going. And my first one is kind of along those lines in the sense that I'm going to say that they got to quit drafting the same position, or you got to solve left tackle. Right now, I think Chiefs fans are very optimistic that Josh Simmons has done that, and if he answers this, it will allow them to be good at what you're talking about, Sam, because they have used a 2025 first, they've used a 2024 second, a 2023 third, a 2022 fifth, a 2020 third. They also traded away a 21 first, third, fourth, and fifth. Okay, and a 22 fifth. 21 first, third, fourth, and a 22 fifth. That was the Orlando Brown trade. Right now, they got some draft picks back. They got a second and a sixth back with Orlando Brown. But just the amount, and then throw on that they put 2 years, $30 million down on Jalen Moore. The amount of resources that have gone into solving the left tackle. And listen, they've won championships along the way. It's not squandered, right? But none of these guys have really solved it. They got back to the Super Bowl with Kingsley Suamataia and Wanya Morris being part of the equation that year and pushing their guard over. We know everything that's gone on. But to quantify it, when you look at it, this is all just since Eric Fisher left. I mean, there are 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick, 3 third-round picks, a fourth-round pick, and 2 fifth-round picks that have gone at the tackle position, right? And none of them, until now, really looked like they could be the answer. None of them are the answer at right tackle. Lucas Yang had some starts at right tackle, right? But it didn't work. These were Josh Simmons, Kingsley Suamataia, Wanya Morris, Darian Kennard, Lucas Yang. I mean, Orlando Brown, Jalen Moore, like all those. They've got to solve this so that they quit throwing so many draft resources at that one spot. If Simmons does that, then all those picks can be used someplace else and hopefully find, like Sam said, cheap first round, or cheap super talented players that are very productive. I think that's a huge key for this team. Huge key for this team.
Yep.
Jeff, number 2.
I'm going to stay with the drafting theme because it was number 4 on my list, but we're talking about it. And to add to Sam's point, you look at what they did in 21 and 22 when they got Creed Humphrey and Nick Bolton and Trey Smith and McDuffie and Karl Loftus and some of the other role players we're talking about. You're adding those players to a team that already has some established superstars. So you can actually get away with not hitting on all these guys or a large amount because you've got Travis Kelce, or you've got Chris Jones, or you've got Tyrann Mathieu back in the day. I think now you look at the last couple of drafts, it's worrisome because 23 is Rashee Rice and Shamari Connor. Last year, it's Xavier Worthy and Jaden Hicks, the guys you feel could actually be contributors. And so that's not good enough to maintain a dynasty because you're asking these guys now to be your star players. They got to start hitting more high-quality players with these positions. You can't have a Felix Anudike-Uzomah. It hurts you a lot more. You can't have a Kingsley Suamataia because it hurts you a lot more. So I think better drafting, to me, that's a big part of this as well.
Okay. I like it. Sam, number 2 for you.
Similar to Jeff's number 1 with the quarterback, but I've got keep the quarterback healthy and happy. this Brady dynasty actually includes him getting injured and being gone for a year. That didn't end their dynasty. It robbed them of a year. But what ended the dynasty? When suddenly it got rough there in New England and he goes to Tampa instead and wins. What happens with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay? It ends abruptly early because they get sideways with the quarterback. And, sometimes keeping the quarterback happy is just keeping the quarterback in the loop of what you're doing. And the Chiefs have, they've given Mahomes homework on draft picks, and Brett Veach is controlling the draft. But my point is, they are going to the absolute other end of the spectrum with Patrick Mahomes of making him feel like he's involved in operations within the organization that most quarterbacks are not. That's part of this, keeping the quarterback not just healthy, but also keeping the quarterback happy.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great. The way both of you, I love the way you put that and the way it looks. I think it's a great point. Along that line, I'm going to say they're going to have to trade another top player, right? To get the talent that they need. I don't think you can just go at it with 7 picks, use 1 or 2, or maybe you get 8 because you got somebody who left, kind of a lesser player that leaves in free agency, and you end up, with an 8th player, and you use a couple of those picks to move up, and you take 6 guys. Their best draft came after they traded Tyreek Hill. They had all the extra draft picks. It gave them the draft capital to move up and move down and to do things. You get that by trading away good players. And
next 2 Super Bowls too, Soren.
Yeah. And so I think, no one ever wants it to be the next guy, right? Trent McDuffie might be that guy. No one wants it to be Trent McDuffie.
No one wanted it to be Tyreek Hill.
Nobody wanted it to be Tyreek Hill.
How about Chris Jones should have been that guy?
I really think Chris Jones, I think you can make a strong case. It would be great to see what a bizarro world without Chris Jones looked like. Because it's tough to say, because they re-signed him the first time. They won a couple more Super Bowls. They re-signed him, or they won another Super Bowl. Then they re-signed him, and they won another one after that. So each one of his signings has brought another Super Bowl into the mix and other conference championships. So it's tough to knock against having Chris Jones. But I do think it is a giant check. Like the Packers, I think, got better with Micah Parsons. And right away when it's on the low end, and I think they're trying to win 1 championship right now. But I think at some point that contract, I'll have to look at the whole details of how it shapes up over the years. But that's so much money to have on a defensive player. I don't think that's smart in the big picture to win championships, plural. But I get anyone who hasn't won one in a while trying to win 1, which is almost everybody but the Chiefs. It's really everyone but the Chiefs and Rams right now, the way it stands. But yeah, I think at some point they're going to have to figure out the guy that they can live without and move him for more picks to do all the things we're talking about in the draft, because they just need more draft picks to keep feeding this beast to make it really work the way they want it to work. All right, that's 2 each, 3 for you, Jeff. Where are you going next on this?
In keeping with this same thing about personnel, finding more stars. I've said this for years that the most underrated aspect of this team. I know Mahomes is a big part of this, but you had one of the best tight ends in NFL history in his prime. You had a future Hall of Fame defensive tackle in his prime. You had a future Hall of Fame wide receiver who was for part of his prime here. And that to me is a huge part of why this team won three Super Bowls. You have to have high caliber players, star players doing amazing things to win championships. And I would challenge anybody to find a team that hasn't had that, happen for them in the last 30, 40 years, whatever it's been. And keep in mind, I was looking at the Patriots in 14 and 16 and 18 when they got the second half of their championship run going. And really, it wasn't the drafting, it was the veterans. They went out and got Darrelle Revis. They went out and got Chris Long and Martellus Bennett, LeGarrette Blount, who had good years for them. Stephon Gilmore came in from Buffalo and became a defensive player of the year for them. They got 40 catches and 700 yards out of Josh Gordon in 2018 before he went south with his drug issues. And so that is that's a Bill Belichick staple, going out and finding veterans to come in and fit into your system. I don't know if the Chiefs would do that, but it's one route to go if you're not drafting well, if they want to keep this thing going.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. All right, Sam, where do you go next?
I think you could go with a bunch of different variations of this, but I've got keep Andy Reid invested because Patrick Mahomes is going to outlast Andy Reid. And I think you want to push that as far out into the future as you can. But the reality is that it's coming. And I don't think it's coming this year. But I think you look at maybe 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line is when you really start thinking about that. And I think part of that, like keeping Andy Reid invested in his current job, it entails Brett Veach doing his job well, because that absolves Andy Reid of the reason he stopped enjoying the job in Philadelphia. He enjoys this job at a level that he didn't enjoy the end in Philadelphia. Now, obviously, he had a lot of personal stuff going on, but also he was carrying way too much weight within the organization. And if Brett Veach does his job well, Andy Reid less thinks like he's the one who's responsible for coming up with the solutions that Jeff just mentioned with the roster, the number one item that I had on my list with drafting well. When you've got other people around who are doing well, which, by the way, that's getting harder because you lost Mike Bergonzi last year. You lost Brant Tillis the year before. You lost Ryan Poles the year before that. Like this is falling more and more on Brett Veach and, now Mike Bradway and Chris Shea, but those guys were here before. And so you're losing guys without, you're losing experience in that room. And so I think that plays into the more Andy Reid can focus on just coaching the team, I think the longer he's going to be enjoying the job.
Yeah, I like that. I'm putting it down. Like the last part you put, the more he can focus on coaching the team, the more he enjoys it. I think that's a great point, because he has not really. We all know he's got a heavy hand when it comes to the personnel, but he doesn't have to do all of it. He just gets like, you guys do all the work, and then I get the final say. And so I think that's a great way to put it. I'll stay with that one, and kind of on the coaching front and say they got to find Andy Reid's replacement, right? If we're going to talk Patriots-esque, he's not coaching for 12 more years. At least I don't think so. And so who is the replacement for Andy Reid? And I think they could go a long way towards instilling some confidence in Matt Nagy, who most of us think, I certainly do, is the handpicked replacement. I think just the fact that he was college teammates with the general manager, there's a great working relationship there. He knows everybody. The quarterback likes him. Even if you'd like to go someplace else, if the quarterback says he's my guy, he's going to have a hard time not giving the quarterback his guy. So I think, having success this year offensively would go a long way towards, inspiring this team and getting back to being an elite level offense would make it a lot easier for the fan base to accept it, but certainly everybody beyond Patrick Mahomes to go, yeah, Matt Nagy's the guy. But even if they go out of house, like somewhere along the line, they're going to have to find the next, Andy Reid. I don't think it's going to just, I love your point. I think you do want Andy Reid to be as invested and, being on the cutting edge and working on coaching and finding the next wrinkle in the offense that exploits the problems with the defenses and not having to waste his time over on the personnel. I think that's a great point. But at some point, that's going to run out and you're going to have to see them, find the next head coach. It's just reality. And nobody coaches forever. All right, we got a couple more that we want to get to on what is going to extend the dynasty. We'll do it after you hear from our friends at Italian Delight. Italian Delight was the first restaurant to bring true New York-style pizza to Kansas City almost 50 years ago. They sell whole pies or pizza by the slice, or enjoy their classic strombolis, calzones, and sausage rolls. Sandwich lovers, check out their lineup of hot and cold subs, the combo, the meatball, or the Philly cheesesteak, just to name a few. And don't forget the pasta. Their famous lasagna and classic chicken Alfredo always hit the spot. If you're hungry for lunch, check out their daily lunch specials, starting at under $10. Italian Delight can even cater your next work function or party. Dine in, carry out, or delivery, it's Italian Delight. Located just 3 minutes east of Kansas Speedway at 8145 State Ave in KCK. Check out the menu and order online at ItalianDelightKS.com. Kansas City's own Italian Delight. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. All right, number 3 on our list. We've got five each. We're at number 3 on the list. Or number 4, excuse me. That's right. Number 4 on the list. Jeff, where do you go?
I'm talking about the coaches too, and Andy was part of this, but I think Spags is as well, and just retaining assistants overall. I think that's another underrated part of their success, is that they've been able to keep a lot of this staff together throughout this entire run, and that's incredibly rare for teams who've had this level of success. Philadelphia Eagles are going on their, third or fourth offensive coordinator and third defensive coordinator in the last 3 years. The Lions obviously haven't won a Super Bowl, and they're replacing 2 coordinators this year. Most teams tend to lose a lot of staff members. The Rams have put how many head coaches into this league since Sean McVay's been there. So not only keeping Andy Reid around and keeping him invested, but I think holding on to Steve Spagnuolo, who's 65 years old. And if he's not going to get a shot as a head coach, how much longer does he want to be a DC? He's obviously established his own legacy now, and he's done well for himself. We talked about Dave Merritt, the secondary coach, having opportunities to be a defensive coordinator. And then is Matt Nagy, is he going to stick around, or is he even the guy who's going to be able to replace Andy Reid? I was trying to remember who replaced Andy Reid in Philadelphia. And for the life of me, I could not think of who.
Chip Kelly.
Was it Chip Kelly? Okay. And he lasted a couple years. And so that, to me, is a big part of this too. I agree. I don't think Andy Reid's going to be around for beyond the next 5 years. He may not get to 5 years. And so that's a huge, huge question mark for this team staying dynastic.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, the way it went for Bill Belichick the other night, maybe he'll be available as a defensive coordinator. Thought I'd get that shot in there.
Yeah.
All right, Sam, number 4 for you.
Yeah, very, very similar. I've got maintain the staff as well, but specifically hope that, Spags doesn't get a head coaching job. And, Jeff touched on all the major points, but, the thing I would point out is their actual best offensive year was a year they didn't win the Super Bowl. And it was because their defense was atrocious in 2018. They went from 426 yards per game in 2018 to 327 last year. 100-yard per game difference. Last year they make the Super Bowl. The year before they're done in the AFC Championship, and they won a Super Bowl in 23, by the way, with 350 yards per game, which again 74 yards fewer than what they had per game than in 2018. And the reason's obvious: their defense stunk, and it took Spagnuolo 10 games into his first year, but that defense with Tyrann Mathieu at the helm and Chris Jones turned it on late in the year. And people forget that even in their Super Bowl wins in 19 and then in 23, their offense did not play particularly well in those 2 Super Bowls against the 49ers. Their defense played really well in those 2 games. So the Chiefs, the number one reason they're a dynasty, the number one reason they're having this conversation is Patrick Mahomes. It is their offense. But without having good defenses, with having Bob Sutton-like defenses, I don't know how many Super Bowls this team would have if that was the fate of their defense at the 2018 team. And Spagnuolo deserves more credit than any individual player for it.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I think the offense we know you got to have, but Spagnuolo always takes whatever he's got and makes it better, right? Or at least gets the most out of it, right? However you want to phrase it. They don't suck. Their personnel gets maximized in him. He seems to be able to look at what he's got and say, okay, this is what I can do with it. So, yeah, I think that's a great point. I'll go with number 4 for me is I'll go back to the Patrick Mahomes side. I think his contract has to stay flexible. And that sounds easy. It's kind of along the lines of what Sam was talking about and you guys are both talking about, but keeping him happy. I think he is happy winning, and so that's a big part of the equation. As long as you can keep him winning, he's going to be happy. But
So for yours is keep him barely happy, right? It's that fine line. Like what's the line to where I can say, okay, he's happy, we're good.
Yeah, they're going to have to be creative. I think they were creative with his contract early on. They made it so big that it seemed overwhelming, right? And then we know that there was, it gives them the ability to move money around. They're going to have to do that. But it was more than just that because, like I said, it was $500 million. It was the largest contract ever for a player in American team professional sports, which we know agent and player have to be able to declare a win. Right, like the cornerback contract, Stingley got 3 for $90, so that made him at $30 million per the highest cornerback. But then Sauce Gardner got 4 for $120. He got the extra year. He didn't get any more money on average, but he got the extra year. Like they always want to be able to declare a win, and the Chiefs were able to give him a contract that enabled him to declare a massive win. He broke even the contract of
it was North. Yeah, Mike Trout. It was North American sports.
Right?
Yeah,
and so that he broke even that. So it was the biggest win, not just for football, but it was the biggest win of American team sports. And so I don't know how you do it this time around, but I think it's coming really soon, right? Because they've got a massive cap hit that they're going to have, and you want him bought in and happy. I think all the things you guys have talked about are right. I'm curious what the creativity is going to be. And you mentioned Brant Tillis was one of the guys that was a big cap guy that I'm sure was instrumental in working with Brett Veach on, well, here's what we can do. And here's where they can claim that the size of it, but we can still move it around and make it happen. Because we know soon after people started then taking digs. Well, he only got this much guaranteed money, which has always bothered me because he's got way more guaranteed money in it than people realize. It just keeps turning over every year into guaranteed money. And I think no one wants, because it doesn't fit the narrative of what they're talking about that day. Nobody wants to dig in and say, if you look at it like 15 months out, who's had the most guaranteed money? By far, it's Patrick Mahomes, because it's constantly putting more guaranteed money on him.
Yeah,
and
it's the new league year affects not just the upcoming season, but it guarantees the next one after that.
Right. So he's constantly got the year he's in and one more, which no other contract still has had that, which I'm amazed by. No one else has done it. Everybody else goes for the cheap, well, I got more per APY, and they run around celebrating. And meanwhile, Patrick Mahomes has had more guaranteed money than anybody ever when you factor it in that he's always getting a year ahead on the guaranteed money. Is that enough? Do they just redo it like that and make him the highest APY right now? And that's enough for him to do it? To this point, it's been enough for Patrick Mahomes to just sit back and go, okay, I'm getting all the money. I'm guaranteed all the money. I've got all the security. That's been enough. But is that still going to be the case? I don't know. Do they have a creative way to hit another home run? And it may be next offseason. It's probably next offseason that they're going to have to do it.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I like the fact that we all put Mahomes on this list, but kind of found a different way at it. But yours, I think, Soren, is more imminent, I would say, than the reasons that Jeff and I listed, which are these longevity reasons. Like, that is a longevity thing with his contract, of course, but that's coming because right now, next year, he's going to account for almost $80 million against the salary cap. Now, what we've seen the Chiefs do is kick the bonus ahead to where only 20% of it applies. Now, some of that they're stuck with because it's already been money that's kicked ahead. And some of it is not part of the money that can be converted into the bonus that spreads equally over the next 5 years. But what's different this time is the next year after that, it's also almost $80 million. And so you tack on, 20% of 80, another 16, like he's going to have a number that's about 95 million a year from now. And then suddenly you're counting $20 million every year. So this is coming sooner than people realize of having to answer the question, what do you want to do about Patrick's contract?
Yeah, I agree. All right, number 5 for you, Jeff. Where are you going on number 5?
It's adjusting with the times. And I feel like, as I mentioned, New England, what they did as far as going out and getting some free agents to fill some voids, that the Chiefs have been really resourceful, I think, in these last 2 championships they've won, and talking about, hey, let's play to our defense. Let's go out and get rid of a star player like Tyreek Hill and mix in some new guys and make the most of them. But it gets harder and harder to do that as you get farther and farther away from, the first championship you won. I saw Cooper Kupp talking about in the video about how defenses have changed and how back and when he was with the Rams in 2017 and 18, like Sean McVay was so far ahead of the curve. And he said they'd come out there and defense didn't know what they were doing and they could do all these things to them. And then 3-4 years later, Vic Fangio was running some stuff that kind of caught lightning in a bottle. And then Brandon Staley came by, he's doing it. And now he's like, it's so different now. Within like 3 or 4 years, the whole league changed. And so I do worry about the way this team operates with so much pass heavy stuff, such a resistance to really embracing the running game, which has come back around. Could that be their undoing? And so I again, they've done a phenomenal job. You can't criticize them for that, but other teams are getting better and other teams are doing different things that can make it harder for them to win championships.
So how did you phrase it? What's the
adjusting with the times, like trying to find new ways to do things. And Andy did that when he got Mahomes. He went out and changed his West Coast offense and added spread concepts. But how many times can you keep doing that? And how many times do you want to do that?
Yeah, I like that. Okay, Sam, next for you.
Yeah, it's similar to one that you had on your list, Soren, but solve the tackles. I think you could say protect Patrick Mahomes, which is what I initially have. But when you go back and look at this team historically under Patrick Mahomes, they went years with not having great interior line play, and they were fine with not having great interior line play. And what has killed this team historically offensively is when the tackles stink. And, they're 3-2 in the Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes is. His 3 wins, we know what they are. The 2 wins, the number one storyline coming out of that game was how bad their tackle play was. I think it was overstated to spread across the entire offensive line, but particularly, in the game in 20, they had just lost Eric Fisher. The week before at left tackle, suddenly you've got to move Rimmers to left tackle. Rimmers is already a fill-in, and you're screwed at tackle. Last year, you're screwed at left tackle all year long. It's not like you've got great right tackle play to begin with. You've got average right tackle play. And, Patrick Mahomes can adjust if he can see it. When he can't see it and it's on the tackles, it's really tough for him to adjust. Ideally, you do solve it the way you said, Soren. You get a draft pick. Josh Simmons is your answer. But these are positions you can spend on as long as they're good. They just typically don't get to free agency when they are good, which does revert back to what we've talked about earlier, is you've got to draft them well, and it's tough to do when you pick 31st, 32nd in the league. And it's also why I could see in 4 years we're talking about how much money should they pay Josh Simmons, and our answer should be a reminder of we remember how bad it was when they didn't have a left tackle, right?
Yeah, I think that's great, because I think you can also add in that he's going to lose the legs, right? Yeah. He's not going to be scooting around. At some point, he's going to become the old man. The old man that can still think, the arm doesn't usually go away. Maybe there's a little bit of zip that comes away from it, but he throws so many balls that are touch balls as it is right now. But he is going to have to stand in the pocket. I think it speaks to a little bit of what Jeff said, adjusting with the times. Part of adjusting with the times is going to be adjusting the offense and the fact that Patrick Mahomes can't be a cheat code where, well, that play sucked, but he ran for 8 yards and got us a first down. Let's get deeper into the play sheet. Yeah. Right? Like, they're going to have to be more consistent on the offensive end to what Jeff said. But to your point, Sam, like, the Eagles tackles are badass, right? But, Tom Brady did a pretty good job of making up, the Trent Browns and the guys that were going there on the left side. But with Peyton Manning, they needed guys to protect him. And that's going to become even more important that they've got that right.
Well, those guys needed interior alignment because they didn't move as much. And so you looked at the way those teams invested, like they had some interior alignment who could play. I mean, Jeff Saturday was an all-pro center for Peyton Manning for a long time.
Yeah. I still think, though, that they're going to have to protect him all around. Yeah. Right. Which is why I do wonder a little bit about the investment on the interior of this line. Like, could that money have been spent better elsewhere while he's got the wheels? And when the wheels are gone, then it's got to all go into the offensive line and make sure that he's good to go. All right, my final one is the stadium. They've got to make sure that the new stadium / training facility is a massive revenue generator. Not just keeping up with the Cowboys, but playing with Patrick Mahomes is certainly a calling card. One, you don't want to have the worst, training or a trainer's table, and you need the lounges, that stuff to keep people happy. We know first and foremost, if you pay guys, that's number one, right? And to pay guys, I think more and more it's going to be about paying guys up front and signing bonuses. And at some point when you lag so far behind in the signing bonus category, it's going to start blowing up. More and more, everybody's getting guaranteed money, right? Whereas these contracts are becoming 70% guaranteed, 80% guaranteed. That number is going up and up. And we may get to a point that all NFL contracts, or at least all quarterback contracts, are guaranteed, right? But the difference is if somebody else is getting 30% of it, 40% of it right now, and the Chiefs are still wanting to stack it back, that's going to start being a problem. And so when they go get this stadium, they have to do the stadium right. It has to generate the revenue. They can't just talk about it. It has to be the right thing, which is what scares me, that they're going to go ahead and just renovate Arrowhead Stadium and have no moneymaker around it. Oh, they'll have a practice facility. Hopefully they'll recreate the Star in Dallas. They'll make millions of dollars around it. But if you do the stadium right and you do the practice facility right, you can have revenue engines at both locations. And then there's no excuse to not be able to give the money up front for signing bonuses. Right now, they're not one of the richest cash teams. So their cash outlay on signing bonuses kind of sucks.
But,
and I think at some point,
by choice, right?
By choice.
I mean, they can pay signing bonuses now. The Hunt family can afford signing bonuses now.
The Hunt family can, yes, and everybody can. That's in the NFL. But if they have those revenue generators, then it's easier for them to stuff their pockets and still pay it. Right? I'm with you. Can they do it? Yes, but they're not now. And the reason they'll tell you is because they're not as cash. They're a cash poor team.
And I would say that they're a top 5 richest owners in the league is what I would point out. Among, when you combine the whole family, which the whole family has a piece of the ownership, equal pieces of the ownership, by the way. When you combine all that net worth, they're top 5 in the league. I think this is much more of a choice. And maybe, I'm not disputing the fact that they make more money. Maybe it becomes a little bit easier. It's more icing on the cake, but I do just want to point out that they're making a lot of money right now.
But can
they
we
have
agree?
a lot of money. Yeah.
Can we agree if they've got thriving stuff going on that they're generating revenue on, then there's no excuses. Yeah. And so at that point, if they lose out on a signing bonus, it's a lot easier for the fan base to come down on them. It's a lot easier for the quarterback to come down on them. If it's like, well, wait a minute, we had this guy, we could have kept him and he left because you won't give him a signing bonus. What are you doing? Like, it gets harder to have a straight face and be up there and answer that.
You call yourself the world's team, then you can't call yourself a small market in the same sentence.
I think it's fair. What'd you learn, Jeff, from doing this exercise? What'd you come away with? We'll finish with that.
What I learned probably had more to do with teams that I had covered in the past and had not paid that close attention to. So looking at the Patriots especially and trying to remember some of the things about them, it's so easy. And this is not to diminish what the Chiefs have done, but even with the Patriots, you forget about the things, the breaks that come along the way to help you win championships. We forget about Todd Gurley being hurt for the Rams when they played their last one. We forget about the Falcons blowing a 28-3 lead. Things have to work in your favor. So some of the things Sam was saying in terms of the contributions of Steve Spagnuolo, for example, you have to have a cast and the timing to give your stars opportunities to make the plays that win the game. And so that to me was a big thing I realized, was just like, no matter who you are, there's some luck that goes into this. And sometimes the breaks don't go your way.
Sam, what did you learn?
Yeah, I mean, I actually considered putting number 5 on my list just luck. I mean, the ball's got to bounce your way, proverbial speaking, in the sense that, I mean, let's face it, it was bad luck in 20 that their offensive line gets hurt, or we're talking about them probably having 4 Super Bowls and not 5. It was bad luck in 2018 that they lost the coin toss against the Patriots. It was good luck that they won the coin toss, the next year against the Bills. Next year against the Bills, which they, should have parlayed into that year's Super Bowl. Like, there's some stuff out of your control that has to go your way to win these things. But still, the overarching theme to me was a lot has gone well already. A lot is already in the right spot for this team. Quarterback, head coach, other star players that Jeff mentioned, some cheap labor that's pretty darn good, a GM that routinely drafts better than most, not perfect, but drafts better than most. Like, they're already in pretty good position. I mean, there's I think 31 other teams right now that would sign up for the Chiefs next 5 years.
Yeah, I would just push back, not push back, but I would say that like the luck is the opportunities. You create the opportunities by being good every year. To your point, the coin flip didn't go. They've had the coin flip.
Oh, they buy themselves the lotto ticket for sure. Yes.
Yeah. I would agree. I just underscore that part of the equation, and I would kind of just build on what you finished with there, and that is that what I learned from it was as I look at it, the things I think are important are all achievable. One, Simmons is kind of already in place. When you talk about the tackles, we all kind of mentioned that and protecting Patrick Mahomes. Two, they're getting a new stadium. They're going to get to do whatever they want, so just don't screw it up. So the opportunity is there to generate more revenue. The team is exciting. They've got the general manager in place. Andy Reid should want to keep coaching, right? I think that's there. Trent McDuffie's another star. They got to figure out what they're going to do. Are they going to pay him or not? But, yeah, I think that a lot of it's not like, oh my God, how are they going to get there? It's not a lot of heavy lifting. I think it's just maintaining what you're doing. I feel like they're in pretty good shape. Doesn't mean they're going to do it because it can come off the rails. Josh Simmons' injury is one that we know, leads to other injuries. He goes down week 8. We look at this entirely differently. And the health of the quarterback, right? We look at this entirely differently. Piss off the quarterback. It all looks different, right? It's one thing. Don't piss off the quarterback. Keep him happy, and I think that's going to be big. Listen, it's big if you support the Red, Gold, and Bold by supporting our great sponsors like Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Kansas City's best since 1994. They're making parking lot problems disappear. One contractor, all things parking lot. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. Northland Injury Law. Voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyer. Google, 5-star rated. Northland Injury Law. You've got a case. If you've been hurt in an accident, at work, with a fall, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. And by our friends at Italian Delight. Just 3 minutes east of Kansas Speedway on State Avenue, 8145 State Avenue. You can order online at ItalianDelightKS.com. That's ItalianDelightKS.com. Daily lunch specials starting at under $10. The first restaurant to bring New York style pizza to Kansas City almost 50 years ago. Locally owned, family owned. Italian Delight. Find them online at ItalianDelightKS.com. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com. Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here